Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ravi. I'm the co-founder CEO of Zeeve. And first of all, I would like to welcome everyone to this special Zeeve AMA. And today we are very excited to feature Autheo, one of the most forward-looking venture in the blockchain space, building on Cosmos SDK, a sovereign L1 chain, and with a target to bring in more and more Web2 users into Web3, whether it be enterprises or other Web3 builders. And today we have Scott Bayless, who is the founder and managing director at Autheo, and Kenneth Harper, who is the chief engineer officer at Autheo. So welcome to this AMA. Starting with Scott, first, we would love to hear about a bit about yourself, your entrepreneur journey. I know you have been seasoned entrepreneur. So what inspired you to start Autheo? What inspired you to launch your sovereign L1? And what kind of challenges you are seeing in the current market that Autheo is trying to solve?
Thank you, Dr. Robbie. It's really nice to be here, everyone. I've been my name is Scott Bayless, as I was introduced, and I've been in technology for about a little over 30 years. I launched a company back in the 90s when the web started and built about 300 interoperability solutions built it up about 350 or 300 engineers and software developers. And really, I started following blockchain about 9.5 years ago. The company started really with a vision, and it became an uncompromising vision. Todd Mortensen, one of the best entrepreneurs I know, we started talking about 7 years ago about launching a platform for developers and people to launch networks and ecosystems. And about 4 years ago, we had an opportunity to do so. And not so long, and our goal was to build the organization with equity co-founders, just until we got traction to go to the investors. And we had raised a lot of money in previous ventures, and we thought it would really be good to gain the traction first. And what had happened while we were trying to build a platform, there was a lot of big tech that owned the networks, and sovereignty became an issue that people were getting shadow banned and deranked. And we really started migrating to Web3. And it really led us into the problem that there was a huge gap in between Web2 and Web3. And when you looked at Web3, there were so many different blockchains that, in a good thing, they had all this differentiation, various standards and the APIs and their own consensus mechanisms and their own wallets and so on. But from an interoperability standard, it was a nightmare really too. So our goal to be able to give people the ability to launch scalable, interoperable, integrated networks that spanned Web 2 and Web 3, we realized that we had to dig down deeper and deeper. And although we wanted to be a platform, and we are on a layer 1 blockchain, what we realized is that becoming a platform was just perpetuating the problem, and we had to dig deeper to become a layer 0. So a layer 1 was part of our solution, but we're just continuing an uncompromising solution to give developers the ability to build projects from a developer environment to span Web 2 and Web 3. And those projects need to be interoperable, integrated, and provide the various features that they need. So now it's more of a movement. We've got multiple partners, about 85 people working around the world on the project. And today or this week is one of the most exciting times, because after 4 years, we're ready to launch the nodes, which are the foundation of our ecosystem. And Kenneth, the one thing I want Kenneth to speak here in just a minute, introduce himself, because he's a special person. I mean, he joined the company over a year ago. He had been working on the same problem from a different perspective for about 2 years. And he's kind of a person that is likened to a Bill Joy that's with Sun Microsystem when Scott McNealy said, the computer was the network Bill Joy was the one who built the Java virtual machine, which changed the world. Kenneth's likened to that type of a person. Absolutely amazing. He's able to actualize this. And when he talks about our nodes, you're going to see that they're entirely differentiated from a traditional layer one blockchain nodes, that as we're launching more and more nodes, we're going to have more value to the people who go in and buy our nodes and run them. But anyway, I'll leave it over to Kenneth right now because you have to hear from him. He's amazing. Thank you, Dr. Ravi.
No, I think that's absolutely fascinating, Scott. All the great networks that we have seen, they always start with a strong sense of purpose and a strong team backing it. And I think Autheo definitely has one. Jumping on to Kenneth. Kenneth, again, we would love to know about you, your Web3 journey so far, and at the same time, a bit about the technical architecture view of the sovereign L1, which is Autheo chain, and then we'll jump on to or go deeper into the node sale infrastructure piece and what exciting features that Autheo is coming up with.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. So, yes, it's good to be here. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Yes, as Scott has eloquently stated, the fracture out there in the ecosystem of Web3 and blockchain is tremendous. Especially people coming from a Web2 world trying to learn, adopt, and build solutions on these platforms and layers. It's not easy. So what we've done is really taken an approach from a developer perspective of simplicity and consolidation into a more unified experience that makes it so much easier, in my opinion, for developing. If you're new to Web3 and trying to develop, it can take weeks and months just to decrypt any specific chain, reading thousands of documents, lines of code that mean nothing, and then trying to build a solution on top of it. And if you're not an infrastructure person, it's not easy to try to run your own infrastructure or launch your own chain, right? A lot of organizations are really focused on the privacy and security aspects. Everybody's still a little hesitant with the public chain concept. So everybody wants some sort of permissioned or private blockchain that they can leverage for their own internal enterprises. And our approach has been to take that and make it easy to where you don't have to worry about how to go build this by yourself. I've done this for probably 7 or 8 years with new startups trying to build solutions, and I've seen them, most of them fail because they either try to use the public chains and don't want to use them the correct way, or they try to spin up their own infrastructure and just fail abysmally. There is not a lot of good examples of how to be successful for a blockchain. Obviously, you have some good quality chains out there. We use a lot of those chains, but it's not easy for startups and enterprises. And that's where we are focusing our efforts to really improve. And these node sales, our validators that we're launching this week, are a fundamental component for the future of where the chain is going and what our capabilities are going to be. I'm really looking forward to our launches in the coming months, especially as we get closer to mainnet and all of our products that we're just trying to push out the door in time for that. So a lot of good things are coming from us.
Nope. Thanks, Kenneth. I think that's a very strong narrative. You're absolutely right. We have started seeing a lot of traction from enterprises and Web2 users who are looking at Web3, but still there are massive challenges when we talk about interoperability or compliances, data management, designing a sound solution, managing compliant infrastructure, especially cross-jurisdictional, as most of the strong use cases are all cross-jurisdictional, whether it be stablecoins or RWA or DeFi, a combination of DeFi and TradeFi. So you're absolutely right. I think there's a clear gap here, which Autheo is trying to solve, and I think it's a very strong narrative as you have described. So moving further, a bit more about Autheo. So, Scott, what's the Autheo's broader mission and some of the exciting features that we are going to see, which will enable solving some of these challenges that you have Kenneth has touched upon.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. As we had continued with the vision really to enable developers to launch scalable, interoperable networks that cross Web2 and Web3, we had to get more and more into the infrastructure. And I really do want to thank Zeeve for helping us, because as I had mentioned, I had worked in systems integration, software development throughout the 90s and had about 200 different customers. I would say Zeeve was as good as you can get. Zeeve's been they're working with us even today. They started working with us on launching the layer 1 blockchain, and then getting deeper and deeper into the infrastructure. But what we realized is that we had to control the experience. In other words, we couldn't just launch on a layer 1 and then connect up different cloud storage solutions or compute or AI or DePIN, that we had to really tackle these and figure out how they're going to integrate in our network so we can get developers to launch these problems. So aside from the validator networks, we really started working on decentralized ID and Web2 compatible, W3C-compatible decentralized ID. And Kenneth, he's really a prodigy when it comes to security and encryption, and he's really embedding NIST compliance, post-quantum cryptography into our DID, and we're getting ready to launch that into enterprises. And right now we're starting to build a global channels department by a person named Akil, who's built the global channels for Cisco, HP, and Dell. And he onboarded people that he's known for a long time, worked with for years, about 6 people now working in our channels department. And we're starting to talk with the systems integrators, global systems integrators and enterprises. In fact, we just signed another partnership yesterday we're going to be announcing soon. But aside from the decentralized ID, we're giving the developers, and we want to give it out for free, a developer environment where the developers can launch layer 1s, layer 2s, rollups, as well as decentralized infrastructure. As we're working with Zeeve, they're helping us with we've already built a basic IPFS storage solution that we're going to be launching a preliminary one in January, but we're going to build that entirely out, kind of similar to if you look at AWS and the AW Council, to be able to launch a virtual compute, storage, AI, and so on. We want to give the ability for developers to launch that are pre-integrated. So if you go on and Kenneth can say this a lot more eloquently than me, but if a developer goes into our developer hub in the future, they'll be able to launch a layer 1 with a few steps, or a layer 2, and then be able to attach storage and compute and so on, and have the ability to right there work with a full stack environment. So they could create front end with React, Next.js, and Vue, or back end with Golang and microservices and so on. And we're also working on something that we'll be talking more about the future, but right now we kind of call it a zero veil, which is a kind of a browser enclave that solves the interface problem of Web2 and Web3, so that once you get the Autheo decentralized ID, and that you have access to be able to pull up everything in our development environment, and then be able to launch projects that span Web2 and Web3. And as running a systems integration firm, I understand how this is going to be for enterprises and systems integrators, because every different corporation is using different types of blockchains, and there's so many great blockchains: Solana, Sui, Cardano, Avalanche, and so on. So rather than compete with those, our goal is to integrate with them. Now, why would somebody on Sui or Solana want to develop on an Autheo platform? Because they could build on their chain, they could sign up for our DID, and then have access to the developer environment, the full stack SDK, the decentralized integrated infrastructure, and build on their chain, and they'll get the transactions and so on. And that way they don't have to patch these large solutions together by stitching APIs. Kenneth, why don't you talk a little bit about this? You can go into a lot more depth and excitement, but thanks.
Thanks, Scott. So yeah, I think you laid the framework quite well. Our focus is definitely the interoperability side. It's kind of like a reverse hub and spoke model. And instead of us going out and manually bringing in individual chains one at a time, which, there's thousands of chains of, capabilities out there, we want the chains to be able to do something that will instantly integrate with the broader solution and suites that we have. So by them, installing a simple module, integrating a certain capability or service, they'll have full access to our entire suite and portfolio of products and capabilities. And as Scott said, they can still develop on their chain, but we will be able to help facilitate the integration with other chains and other chain capabilities that they won't have to, whether it be an infrastructure integration, additional layer twos that are easier to spin up and create, hours instead of weeks and months, or something as simple as, the identification, right? The decentralized identifiers, which are becoming more and more important, right? And that's one of the drivers of Autheo's direction and concept around sovereignty is the community gets to take ownership of their data. They don't have to rely on parties and products and solutions that will sell their data without them knowing about it, and just becoming a security risk. So everything that we have is really centralized around our decentralized identifier suite of products, which will enable them to sort of think SSO for Web3. That is the core concept here. So with that security, you get privacy, security, you get encryption, you get all of the interoperability across all the different chains that exist. And if somebody has decentralized identifiers from other systems, there are other products out there in the market that have decentralized identifiers that are W3C compliant. You can technically log into our system with that decentralized identifier and have access to the capabilities. So, it's a really great suite that we're building, and it's really focused, like we've said, getting the community engaged, minimal impact, but expanding their pace of development, because that's one of the main problems is Web3 is very slow to adopt and very slow to roll out, mostly because it's just so fragmented.
No, I think that's very interesting points. I think Scott and Kenneth, you have brought in, and I can resonate easily with them, working with a lot of enterprises and as well as Web3 builders. So I think it's a very smart strategy to have a sovereign L1, yet at the same time bring in some much needed components that other chain builders can also leverage, whether it be DID or decentralized storage. Interoperability, I think, is of course one of the pressing challenges. Still, it takes a lot of time and cost to interoperate, especially when we talk about cross-chain bridges or cross-chain swaps. And then the concept of app chains, I think, is very exciting. As you rightly said, network of networks. This makes a lot of sense because when we talk about enterprises, they do require, some may require their permission chains, but some data still would be there on the sovereign L1. And that kind of model works very well with RWA and some of the other use cases, where a combination of on-chain and off-chain or permissioned and permissionless, I think, makes a lot of sense. And I think this is something which we are seeing now in last 2 years, that enterprises are gearing up to the whole idea, understanding the concept and doing some big POCs and pilots to see how they can move from the early permission layers to more permissionless kind of model. No, I think that looks very, very interesting. So now coming to the node sale narrative. So we are soon going to see Autheo mainnet, and now you're launching your node sale. And Node Sale in the recent times has become a very powerful model for bootstrapping networks and communities, especially, bringing in desired decentralization and at the same time bringing community, engaging with them. So it has become a tool which fulfills quite a few challenges for any new layer one or Web3 venture. So, Scott, Kenneth, I think you both can pitch in, talk about, what the node sale is, decentralization or community engagement perspective, and also what kind of validator reward structure, validator performance, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'd like Kenneth to start this because the differentiation in the Autheo Validator Nodes is absolutely amazing, because as we're moving forward in the future, the way he's designed them with post-quantum cryptography, as we're moving forward, the multiple language and the ability to couple the other nodes that we'll be launching, so you can get different levels or actually very fast levels of finality and so on. But Kenneth, why don't you go ahead and dive into some of the depths that you're really designing and the team's working on with the validator nodes, and maybe the eigensphere capabilities and the different features and functionalities, because it really is amazing.
Sure. So, our validators, like most blockchains, right? We still have to do the consensus. We're still doing all of the finality of transactions, and at the core, that's what the validators are providing. But for us, as we continue to talk about the privacy security concerns, the adoption by enterprises, and breaking out what really would happen in a true, say an enterprise wanted to, build on Autheo, we are providing the capabilities. If somebody purchases one of our sovereign nodes, they can run and host it. But what that enables them is the entire suite of additional nodes, which are going to be coming behind the scenes, right? So we've taken the concept of computing and networking and infrastructure and abstracted it out into additional layers related to, messaging, storage, compute, AI, privacy, encryption, right? So we've created this mesh networks, and these networks really are separated, isolated to run independently, so that if you think about from an enterprise perspective, there's layers and layers and layers of security. People, communities, purchasers of the validator nodes will be able to expand on that core validator, which, they'll be able to control that consensus, but they can run entire shadow chains tied to these validators. They can run entire permissionless and permissions chains behind their firewalls using these validator concepts. But as they grow and adopt into more decentralized storage paradigms and frameworks, they'll be able to also deploy privacy nets, privacy nodes, all these things coming together to really formulate how the ecosystem will come together, interoperate, and integrate. And, a lot of how this is really coming to fruition is through our enclave concept, where everything is run inside of secure encrypted enclaves, leveraging, the post-quantum cryptography capabilities, rotating keys, all kinds of crazy things that make sure that endpoint to endpoint within these private mesh networks that you may purchase and grow and expand if you go through the node sales into their ecosystem. So it's providing a powerful overlay on top of the existing network, so that you can have privacy, security, and it's basically becomes an on-ramp to the rest of Web3, so that, easier adoption and integration with other blockchains as well.
Got it. No, I think that's a great balance, strategic decentralization, yet at the same time with technical resilience and a lot of other opportunities, I would say, for the validators, not just to run the consensus and decentralize the Autheo chain, but at the same time, I think they are going to play a very, very important role. So, Scott, a bit about, people who want to participate in the node sale. When the node sale is going to open up, what kind of details the potential node buyer should know how they can participate and long-term benefits and rewards for them.
Yes, absolutely. From a node sale standpoint, there's a total of 399 nodes, and we have taken 7.5% of our total tokens, and they'll be allocated, or emissions will go over a 7-year. Now, we also wanted the ability for retail to be able to participate as well. So we do have the 399 sovereign nodes, but and thanks to Zeeve, really helped us get through the entire fractionalization of the nodes. So we have a core node, which is a 1% of a node, a prime node, which is 10%, and then we have the full sovereign node. And we're starting out at a price of $5,000 for the sovereign node. I think it's $700 or $600 for a prime node, 10%, and $70 for a core node. Now, of the 600 or 399 nodes, there's already about 25% pre-sold and allocated. So we reserved a small amount for strategic partners, early contributors that investors had received about 35 nodes, and I think there were 45 nodes that were pre-sold, and they were what we want to do is test the market. So when we pre-sold the nodes, we didn't discount them way below the first level of our tiers. So there's already been 45 full sovereign nodes sold at the $5,000 price that people can get into right away when we launch. So the way it works is, if you purchase the nodes, they'll go through 12 different layers. And how it's going is, the first nodes that are sold will be 5,000, and then each tier will go up 1,000, 12 tiers until they're sold out. But then we really dived into, I mean, of course, there's limited supply, and maybe if you get in earlier, you get a cheaper price, but we want to do something more for our buyers. So what we did was put up a 1-year airdrop of the Autheo token for purchasers that buy at additional levels beyond the level 1. And how that works is, if I buy a node at $5,000 or a fraction thereof, I'm on the first tier. But at the second tier, if you buy a full sovereign node, you will get an allocation or an airdrop of 20,000 additional Autheo tokens over the first year, monthly allocated over the first year, because the price went from 5,000 to 6,000. Well, then when it goes to 7,000, the airdrop increases another 20,000 tokens over the first year. And what we did was kind of analyze what we thought would be the launch price of the token, and we did a lot of work figuring, okay, what would offset the increase of $1,000 for each tier by getting additional tokens, which kind of act like a larger emission for the buyer. So we think all the tiers are completely fair, and really we're trying to build this whole ecosystem and everything we're doing for developers in the community. And the core philosophy of Autheo is very simple: treat other people like you want to be treated. So we really look at this and say, if I were buying nodes at various levels, how would I want to participate or buy? And that's really how we set it up. So I think it's a very fair setup. The 7.5%, there's an extremely limited supply, because already of the 399 sovereign nodes, there's 25% already gone, but they're not gone at a highly discounted level where people feel that all the insiders got the great deal, and now they're in the retail getting a lesser deal. And then also, if you don't get in early on and you're on tier 7 or 9, you missed out on the great opportunity. We've tried to solve all those problems and really turn this into a community developer ownership venture where they could participate fairly.
No, I think that's a great model, and thanks for outlining this. I think all the members who are listening to this AMA would definitely benefit out of this. And I believe that, the way you have designed this is a very interesting, because I believe the validators should have sufficient interest in running a network. That's where we say that decentralization, they should be rewarded or become a real owner of the chain. And I think you have sufficient incentives for the validators to be aligned. And at the same time, lot of components that we talked about, that will bring in more and more builders. And some of these builders may also keen to be participating in the node sale. May not be running the full sovereign L1, but then you have created other two layers where even smaller retail users or developers or builders or ventures can participate in the node sale. So I think overall it looks very, very exciting, and it solves a purpose. So Scott and Kenneth, as Autheo moves past the node sale, what are the next big milestones, community can look forward to?
Kenneth, why don't you handle that in terms of some of the things that are coming out after this?
Sure. So I know when we look at community utilization from capabilities we're building and deploying, we are preparing our decentralized identifier suite to go to, third-party security audit. So that should be coming out to testnet, very, very soon once we finish the security aspects of it. Beyond that, we are looking at several additional capabilities. Some of those are core around DeFi utilization, DeFi capabilities, staking, liquidity pools, all those wonderful DeFi utility things that non-developers tend to get involved with blockchains. So trying to attract both cohorts of the community out there of our users. And as we look further on down the road, we have a lot of things in flight. We do have additional nodes that we are building out and finalizing. So building out the core infrastructure related to those mesh networks as we separate out the physical and networking layers related to the decentralized suites, messaging nodes, the storage nodes. We'll even have specific nodes for identity, all those capabilities there, and really rolling out from there into more of the integrated interoperability user interface, right? So that ability that allows any chain to connect to the core of our product suite, access all the capabilities, have access to the full mesh networks and all the different layers that we offer. That's going to be coming soon, probably in Q1. So a lot coming up from us from technical capabilities.
Oh, one of the things that we've been working on for a long time, and there's a lot of features in it. As I had mentioned, we're going to be giving this to the industry without cost, is our developer environment. We call it the Dev Hub. And there's some really cool features and functionalities that we're going to be providing with that. One of which is that there's repositories, and they're all entirely sovereign. So, as developers work in there, they're going to have sovereign repositories. We're building in various types of project management and community where developers will be able to work together, news feeds, other things that we'll add in the future. I think Ken is working on about 39 different DeFi derivatives that are tied to the various components of the developer environment. But that's something that we're really excited about moving forward with. One thing I do want to mention about the node sale, again, just going back there, we also have the ability, a referral code for the nodes, and we're taking 7% and we're providing it to people who introduce other people. So you can participate, not just buying a sovereign node or a prime node or a code node. You can go in and get a referral code, and there's a 7% commission that's paid immediately, as well as a person who uses the code gets a 3% discount. Now, the only complication is we really wanted to, if they say in the industry, eat your own dog food. So everything's on chain. So in order to get a referral code, you have to go to the platform and connect a wallet, have about 5 cents of Ethereum, or maybe a few dollars of Ethereum on the Arbitrum network. And then you can generate a code and start giving those to your networks, and anybody who buys through that code, you're going to get a commission, but you're not going to have to trust the centralized organization and say, hey, what did you sell? I want to get my commissions. It's all going to be on chain. And what I do want to say is Zeeve helped build all this e-commerce platform and the ability to the whole referral codes, the on-chain capability, and really was exciting working with them, and we're just finishing up the last details right now and doing the smoke test. It's really, really cool.
So that's, I think, super, super exciting. So for everyone who is listening, if you haven't already, I encourage you to explore the Autheo ecosystem, check out the node sale details, as Scott said, follow the channels, become an early contributor, because here we have a project where it's not just the node sale token economics that works very well, but it's a very ambitious project. If the way I see or to summarize the entire discussion, it is 4-layered approach. It's a sovereign L1 where users can come in and build their own apps. For that, Autheo is providing SDKs, APIs, and various interfaces. At the same time, Autheo is launching some of their own apps that will enable early community to start seeing traction on the chain. Then there are various core components that Autheo is bringing in that will enable not just building on Autheo very easy, but at the same time, builders who are building on other chains, enterprise blockchain solutions, and want to use, let's say, DID, or they want to use storage or interoperability, they can use some of these exciting core components that Autheo is building. And then still, if somebody wants to build their own permission chain and want to have an on-chain component to it, they can use app chains or rollups. So it's a very exciting venture, and that makes the node sale much, much more exciting. So a strong token economics to support the node sale will reward, but at the same time, a very, very solid project with a strong purpose. So thanks, Scott. Thanks, Kenneth, for taking out time to share your journey, your insights, your vision with us. And I think it's really inspiring to see how Autheo is shaping the sovereign DeFi ecosystem, bringing more and more users from the Web2 to Web3, including enterprises, which we desperately need in the blockchain ecosystem. And from Zeeve's side, I would like to say that we are truly proud to be your infrastructure partner, supporting whether it be L1 infra or node sale infra, and then upcoming a lot of other projects. We are very, very excited to partner with Autheo, and I believe that collaborations like these are where we are able to push the boundaries of Web3. So once again, thanks to the Autheo team. Stay tuned for more such conversations from Zeeve as we continue to invite innovative builders and innovators on this AMA. Until next time, keep building, keep smiling, and we'll see you at the next AMA.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. Really appreciate you inviting on this. Just if you're interested in Autheo, just keep an eye on our website, our socials, our landing page, which will provide all the details. Will be out here in a few days, and you'll be able to dive into all the details that Kenneth started brushing over. And super excited to be a partner with you guys, infrastructure partner with you guys, Zeeve. And thank you, Kenneth, and everyone else for joining.
And all these Zeeve community members who are listening to this will be publishing all the details of Autheo Node Sale on Zeeve website. We'll add that to our social channels. So do follow Autheo channels, and we'll keep you posted on Zeeve channels as well.